Okay, well, I'm excited that it's a small group. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very excited. That means we can have some intimate conversations, we can get to know one another, and we can really learn from each other in a big way. So I'm excited about that. The presentation as itself, as it stands, is really going to provide you all with some tools that you need in order to become a cultural catalyst. I'm going to tell you a lot about myself throughout this presentation. It was good to get to know you, Emil, and as well as Alicia, to really know what you all already are doing and the things that you already have in common so that we can really work together through this process. So I promise you I won't be before you long. But more importantly, I'm not going to break the bank and tell you anything that you probably don't already know. But a lot of what I enjoy doing in my skill development piece is really teaching people or reinforcing things they already know, right? So I'm sure you all know as learning and development professionals, a lot of us have to hear things, experience them, and do them multiple times in order for them really to stick in. Um, so we're going to do some actionable strategies. We are going to get some insight together. I'm going to make sure that we are learning how to create an equitable environment, not just in work, but also in the community. And then we're going to work together to talk about inclusivity. So this presentation has it all, and it's going to be a lot of engagement and participation. So to kick us off with participation, I want to ask a question, and I'm going to have you use your chat and use your voices, but this time let's use the chat. What do you hope to get out of our experience today? So Alicia, Emil, if you want to drop in the chat, Shani, if you want to drop in the chat also, what do you hope to get out of our time together today? The role of a cultural catalyst. Okay, amazing. I can definitely promise you that'll happen. Ways to become a catalyst for change. Okay, I can promise you that. If I don't give you that, then I'm not doing the task correctly. So let me know. Learn about what others are doing to create. Absolutely. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We'll absolutely do that. Learn more about using DEI to increase acceptance and implementation of change. Amazing. All right. So, all those things will happen in its own format. So, throughout this training, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I love that it's a group that we can all connect and really get to know one another on a deeper level. But with that being said, I think it's only right that I introduce myself. So, my name is Mariah Manuel-Berry. I am the CEO and founder of Knowledge Career Experts LLC. Outside of being an individual who has founded her own company and is doing consulting work, I basically go into organizations and provide them with professional skills. I provide individuals with business skills all around coaching, training, and consultation. A lot of my work, however, is built off of three key pillars. And I've made sure to use these pillars because I know how well they work. Um, I tell people all the time, over 10 years ago, I thought about these pillars. I remember thinking about them. It was around the time where people were really in tune with generational differences, and these pillars haven't changed. And they've actually been the thing that has helped me not only in my business, but also in my career to be a six-figure earner. And those are professional development, mentorship, and culture. And when you think of the last one, culture, this is really where Elevate Equity lives. This is where this program derives from. It's all about helping individuals to thrive in the experience that they currently work in through those three pillars. Now, I have over a decade of experience with working in the learning and development space. I've had the pleasure of building training programs, facilitating training. Currently, my clientele consists of individuals all across the US and Europe. So I really have had the pleasure to get to know people in different functions and formats in a cross-cultural way. So that's the reason why I'm so passionate about this information that I'm going to share with you today. Know that again, by the end of it, I am going to make sure I answer any questions that you all have for sure. And I want to make sure that you leave feeling like, okay, I can go out and actually do the things that she shared. Is that okay? Everybody okay with that? All right, I'm seeing head nods. Alicia, you okay? Good, good. All right. So, in order for this to work, we have to work together, right? I believe in the power of co creation in order for us to really, really make this experience maximize. So, in order to do this, we got to do two things. One, I need to make a commitment to you. And my commitment is I'm going to be authentic, I'm going to deliver something from my heart. I'm going to make sure I share my best practices and tools that will really help you. But more importantly, I am going to honor your time, your experience, and your person. And I believe that last one is the most important. I'm not going to question or riddle or rattle around things. I want to make sure that you know I respect who you are. I respect what you bring to the table. But most importantly, I want to make this time for us beneficial. Now, the other thing is you have to make a commitment to yourself because that's how co-creation works, right? So the commitment to yourself is taking notes and actively participating, taking away any distractions, right? So putting on that hat of no distractions for at least this little time together, being able to share open and be vulnerable, but also know that this is a safe space, right? So we're going to have fun, we're going to work together, but we're also going to make sure that we can keep this space safe for everyone that's involved. So if we're okay with that commitment, want to get some participation, I want you to drop a yes in the chat. If you're okay with me committing to you and you committing to you, drop a yes in the chat for me. All right, Alicia said yes. All right, yes, yes, and yes. Okay, that's all I needed to see. So on this next slide, we're going to do some brainstorming together, some self-reflection. And in order for it to really work, I want you to listen to the things that I'm going to say. When I share these things, if you feel like the answer is yes, I want you to drop aha in the chat. AHA. And anybody who's been in learning and development for longer than a week know about the aha moments, right? That people have. So I want you to drop aha in the chat when you see something that resonates with you. So here we go. Let's go on this journey together. First, if you've ever been in a moment in a space in your life where you truly started to feel like, you know what, I can do something positive. I can do something not just for myself, but I can do something that is so impactful that it impacts and make a change for people around me. And they'll say, aha, right? Now, the next one is the idea of being able to really shape our culture and understanding that humans can do that. As individuals, we actually can shape our culture for our workplace, for our communities, for wherever we are. If you've ever felt that way, I want you to drop an aha in the chat. Okay. Aha. All right. And the last one is about actions. Have you ever truly felt like, you know what? There are actions that I can create, I can do that can truly make our world more inclusive and more equitable. Not just for today, not just for the people around me, but for our future, for our children's children's children. There are things that I can do. Aha. Aha. Okay. So I can tell already just by those questions, and this is going to answer one of your questions already of what is a cultural change catalyst or a cultural catalyst. You already are cultural catalysts because this is what it's about. It's about having a positive impact. It's about understanding the power to truly shape the world around you. And last but not least, is understanding how to be inclusive and how to be equitable. That's what cultural change catalysts truly do at the heart of it all. So sometimes people are like, oh, well, I have to do this amazing thing. I have to, get the award, I have to earn a certificate in order to be almost reigned with the cultural catalyst umbrella or title. And that's just not true. Everybody can be a cultural catalyst starting today and make change, not only in their environment, but those that are around them and into the future if they wanted to. And everybody on this call, it sounds like you're already doing it. It's just my goal to help to draw it out of you. That's what I want to do with us today. Okay. So, in order for it to work, I want to make sure that we go over a true definition of this term. And this is a definition that I like to use because I think it is memorable. I think it's easy and quick to understand, and it ties directly to the strategies that I'm going to share with you today. So, a cultural change catalyst are change agents who actively promote a positive and inclusive work environment for everyone. And I want to highlight the term everyone. I mean, the janitor, the new person, the CEO, right? The retiree, everybody has and feels that promotion of positive inclusivity. They're the individuals who truly transform our company's culture and they foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB, in their own way. And guess what? It doesn't matter what title they have. They're not necessarily the chief diversity officer. They're not necessarily the consultant that was called in. They're just the people who decided to transform that company for the better. And that's what cultural change catalysts are. Now, I have 3 strategies to make sure that we're drawing this out of you. But I need to know you want my strategies because these are the good strategies. This is the good information that I brought to the table. So if you want my strategies, if you want to know how can you draw this piece out of me, drop a yes in the chat. That's all I'm going to have you do. Just drop a yes in the chat if you truly want to know what the 3 strategies are. Okay, that did not take too long. Good. So we're all on the same page. Okay. So here they are. And they're not hard. They're easy. I keep it so simple because I want everyone to be able to grab this information and run with it today. So you're going to learn about the 3 keys today that are really the things that are helping people to not only identify themselves as cultural change catalysts, but to elevate equity and pull it out of them. And I'll be teaching you how to use these 3 strategies in a quick, easy way where you can do it while we're on this phone and after, right? So the first one is increase awareness, advocate for others, and then build a community. Simple stuff. Now, I want to hear your voices. So I'm going to go to the next slide, but I want you to take a moment to look at this picture and tell me what resonates with you. Because before we can go deeper into the conversation of equity, we have to separate it from equality because they're 2 different things. So when you look at this picture, you look at this information, come off mute, share with me, what do you see?
I love this. I've actually seen it before. And the first picture, basically, there is not equality there because I'm going to say young man, for example, with the yellow shorts cannot see the game, right? And so it's not fair for everyone. However, in the next picture, he is then provided with enough support so that he can see the same thing everyone else sees. And so that is equity. And I just love this. I've always have ever since I first seen it. So yeah.
Yeah, so you highlight something that's so important. And I hope that we all get where equity lives. Equity lives in a space where you're not just saying everybody needs $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs $1,000. If I said, okay, thank you for showing up today. I'm sending everybody $1,000. It's going to change your life for the rest of your life. Thank you for coming today. One person may be like, well, yeah, I can use extra $1,000, right? I'm so excited. Thank you so much for that. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change your lives forever. Another person may think $1,000 is just going to pay my rent this month. $1,000 is just going to pay my student loans this, month. There are spaces where equity live in a place where people understand it's not about giving everybody the same thing. It's about giving them what they need. And that's what you want to elevate. When you're in these spaces, training, developing people, wherever your profession is, always remember in the back of your head, especially when you're dealing with adult learners, is that everybody doesn't need it the same way. They may need it a different way, but they need it the way they need it at that time for them. And it changes, right? Any other aha moments or anything that resonates with you based on this picture, Emil?
Right, I like your point about two things that you just said around elevation and then focusing on the needs of individuals. When we do pay attention to the needs of individuals, we give them the support that's going to benefit them and give them opportunity to grow and to succeed. And that's what we want to foster in organizations, that everyone contributes to that kind of an effort. And the elevation is important because as we do that for individuals, we're getting at one of your key themes that I think you said earlier around mentorship and self-development. Those are things that are very important that we should encourage all of our colleagues, all of our employees, all of our friends to continue growing in.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make me think of the term that I use, and I tell people all the time, I'm many things, but the one thing I love being is a lifelong learner, right? It's understanding that learning never ends, it never stops, and you can continue to learn and grow no matter what space you're in. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing that, Neil. All right. Anything else before we move forward? Okay. All right. So, first key. Now, this is where the notes hit the road, right? This is where you really start to take a lot of good notes. So, looking at increased awareness. This one is probably the hardest of the three. Now, the other two are they have their challenges, but this one is hard because it's hard work, because it requires you to research a topic. And when you do research, think about it. You are learning maybe through books, maybe through podcasts, maybe through video, maybe you're getting a certificate, going back to school, you're doing all the things. It requires research. And then after you do that research, you have to then start to put yourself in those experiences. And me and Shani here were talking about this, going in person versus virtual, right? So even that's a challenge sometimes to say, I'm going to go to the event, but it's in person. I'm going to leave my house, right? But you're putting yourself in these experiences and putting yourself around the people who actually have the experience and know the information that you want. And then last but not least, you get to reflect, not just on yourself, but on those people. So this is why this one is, of all the three keys, this one is the most challenging, because it challenges you to actually do something more than just say, check the box, right? I did it, right? You have to go deeper. I'll give you an example. So maybe a few months ago, probably it was at least 6 months ago. So I'm sitting at home and I'm binge watching Lifetime. Anybody know Lifetime movies? Anybody? Okay. One head nod. Alicia, come on, help me out. I know you watch Lifetime. Help me. Tell me you watch Lifetime sometimes, okay?
I do.
Okay, good. Right along. Okay. So I'm watching Lifetime and a movie comes on. And this movie was about a family, a husband and wife, and their child was kidnapped. So their child was taken. And of course, when the child is taken on the movies, and honestly, I do not know if this happens in real life because I've never had the experience, but you go to the cops and Emil, what do they tell you? You say somebody was taken. What do they usually tell you? You got to wait how many hours?
Probably a long time.
24 hours, right? They usually, give like that 24-hour window. Like for you, it's like, this just happened. I need this person back in my life. And for them, they're like, give it a day. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they ran away, something like that. And the lady in the movie, she explains, my child doesn't normally do this. But her husband, they agree and they left and they went home and they come back the next day. And when they came back the next day, to my surprise, the cops were not that helpful. They were like, throwing it off to, maybe she ran away, maybe she, went to her boyfriend. It was just all the excuses rather than the support. And the mother became the mother bear of all bears, right? Because now she's feeling the pressure of, I need to find my child. So she's hanging the flyers and she's walking the streets and she's connecting with individuals. And she ran across an organization that actually kind of helped individuals to find individuals that were missing when I guess the cops weren't being that helpful. And it was interesting because through that relationship, she ended up finding her daughter. Turns out there was a whole ring of people that were being taken in their area, right? It's Lifetime. So it's always something, right? And I'm sitting there watching the movie. And of course, after I'm like digress from tears and, running with the mom and fighting the bad guy off in my head, at the end, they say, this is a true story. Because, Lifetime is always a true story, right? They always tell you that at the end. And they say there's an organization that helps people who need this type of support. And it's called Black and Missing. And I said, no, what's that? What's Black and Missing? So now my key number one kicks in, my increased awareness. So of course, I go on my phone, I start to research. What is Black and Missing? What is this, right? So I'm looking on their website and I find out there's a total epidemic of when individuals who are not a part of the majority race are missing, they struggle with getting the support that they need to find their significant others. Now, I've never personally been a part of this experience, so I never would have necessarily increased my awareness around it. But all of a sudden, I felt very passionate because I'm a, African-American woman, knowing now that there are a group of individuals or an organization out there who are supporting minorities who need this level of support. So then I wanted to experience it. So I started to look at their website more for events. I reached out to the CEO and the founder, and I wanted to know, like, what are you all are doing? How can I help? What can I do to be of assistance? And it took me a while to really reflect and say, Mariah, what could you do? Now I could post and share on my, Facebook. Somebody's missing. If you see them in the area, help them. And what I noticed was that they were helping people all across the country. So people sometimes weren't in Michigan. So I said, what else could I do? So I decided in that moment that for every dollar earned in my organization, Knowledge Career Experts LLC, a portion of that goes to Black and Missing. So I created a partnership with them. And I said, you know what? I really want to help them now today in a way that makes sense for me. Now, you may be thinking, what does that have to do with diversity, equity, inclusion, or belonging? But I will tell you this. Anytime there is an opportunity to create more equity, fairness for everybody, I will argue it is equity. Because in this space, it wasn't like everybody that is missing is struggling to get resources. It was a targeted group. And this organization was able to identify it through metrics, through data, through real life scenarios. So it told me that although this may not have been something I was aware of initially, with increasing my awareness, I could actually make a change. And that is what elevation of equity truly looks like. Finding something that you're passionate about, that you maybe sometimes don't think about, but you start to do the research, you start to have experience with it, and you start to really reflect on what can I do today. So you got to know me, but you don't know this part of me in my training. I love to challenge people. I just feel like it helps you learn the fastest way possible. So I want to challenge you. So on the screen, you are looking at what we call the diversity wheel, right? Or the 4 layers of identity is another way that you might hear it. And what I want everyone to do is look at that kind of wheel, and you see it has the primary, secondary, organization, and cultural kind of space, right? looking at those different words, which one stands out to you the most where you're like, I never thought about that being a part of a person's culture or a part of an organization or a part of how a person identifies themselves? Or any words on there to you kind of making you curious and making you think, huh, I never thought about that being a way for people to identify themselves?
Yeah, time. What do you mean by time?
Uh-huh. Okay. Time. That's absolutely a good one. And I can tell you, it absolutely is a way that people identify themselves. So think about it. You all are Eastern Standard Time, yes? Okay. All right. So, and Alicia is in Ohio, so I know she's Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
My clients are in Europe, 5 hours or 6 hour differences sometimes. And then I have clients who are in California. So time, how I identify myself when I schedule a meeting with them, if I am not aware through research, truly experiencing what it means for them to have to get up to be at a 6 a.m. meeting or call or training when I'm the facilitator at 9 a.m. So I'm bright and bubbly at 9 a.m. and happy, and they're all at 6 a.m. like, I don't want to be on this call. If I'm not thinking of those things, that's how they identify themselves. So you think about time zone, think about, space and time, think about how much time, for example, a parent can take to spend time with training versus a person who doesn't have children. Maybe they have more time. Yeah, that's a good one. Anyone else? Alicia or Emil, you identify any others?
I'll jump in and I'll just comment in the organizational realm. There's one that I find interesting, and that's network. There's a benefit that some people gain from the network that they have or they can build within an organization that gives them opportunities and gives them a chance to move forward, to move ahead, to take on new roles and so forth. And there may be individuals who don't quite have the same network, who are held back and they face headwinds because they're not able to make the same strides forward because their network isn't the same network that may exist in a power balance within the organization.
You are hitting the nail on the head. ATD is a prime example, right? It's an organizational space where maybe at my company, I'm not identified as the top echelon. Maybe I am not identified as the go-to person. But there's so many opportunities in an ATD chapter that allows you to be able to show your skills or maximize your skills, or like you said, Emil, create almost like a win-win or balance for yourself that you probably wouldn't have normally in your natural space. Oh, that's so perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Alicia, what about you? Any of those stand out to you?
Maybe being or doing.
Tell me more.
Well, I can, in a way, I can see doing, because when I think of doing, I think of activity, right? And so people could identify themselves as an activity. I may play tennis or pickleball, for example. So that's a doing. But being, I'm interested to learn more in, with that, with the being part.
Absolutely. So when you think about being, a way to think about it is, I would say, if you've ever been in a space where you've talked about how a person can show up as their full authentic selves.
Yes.
Right? So I would resonate with that. So when you think about being, it's who I am as a person, who I get to show up as in any space that I'm in. And
Okay.
how for some individuals, we've heard things like what is the term? It's called code switching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the little things like that. Maybe
Okay.
an individual who is from down south, maybe they change their vernacular and how they speak when they come up north. The way like your being, you're who you are and who that person is when you go into different spaces.
Yes. Or how about energy levels, right?
Yes, that's another good one. That's another
Mm-hmm.
good one. I can tell you as an extrovert, my, my energy can scare people at times. I always have that. It's like, are you okay? Are you okay? But I can also tell you that I'm actually also an introvert. So after
Me
this
too.
call, I am probably going to turn out every light in my house, go into a corner and curl
Yes.
up in peace, because that's how I get my energy. So
Same here.
absolutely, that's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you all did a good job. So here's the homework, right? Because it's not a challenge when you just do it, right? The homework is, I want you to take those topics and research them. And I don't mean, I looked it up on Google. I mean, really start to think about that particular area more. So think about time more, right? Think about what that means. Think about being more. What does that mean? What space does that live in? And then I want you to experience it. So I don't know, maybe you go on a vacation, Shani, in another state or country and get a different perspective of time. I don't know.
I am. I'm going to New Zealand in July.
There
so.
you go. There you go. So now look, now you're gonna think of me in New Zealand. Now you're gonna
Yes.
be in New Zealand like, hey, all right. So yeah, so really experience it from a different perspective and then take the time to reflect. And I can tell you the reflection piece is the most powerful piece, because it gives you the time to say, okay, now that I've researched this thing, now that I've experienced it, what can I do? How can I change my perspective? How can I interact differently when people identify with this thing, or even when I'm in a space and I need to identify with it more? So that's the homework. That's the challenge for you. All right. So that was key number 1. Key number 2 is advocating for others. And this one is focused around conflict resolution. Because I can tell you, anytime you're dealing with equity, there may be conflict. And that's okay. It's healthy. It means that people are actually passionately thinking about elevating equity. Now, with conflict, there's always going to be risk involved. And the risk is going to be there because you're involving feelings, right? You're involving how they receive you, how others are perceived. I always tell people, when you're attempting to elevate equity, make sure that even as an ally or support of the people, when you're advocating for others, make sure you're showing up the way they want you to, right? A good example is if I had a friend who identified from the LGBTQIA plus community, right? And maybe I felt like something somebody said wasn't right, and I want to advocate for them. Well, I still need to respect that person and understand, do they actually want me to advocate for them? I don't want to put them in an uncomfortable position by advocating for them if that's not what they're asking for. So just be cautious, because that's the risk that's involved. But what I've understood is that through this space, when you are starting from a place of curiosity, people are a lot more forgiving. So curiosity looks like asking questions, knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, and then always assuming the best from each other. Because when you're advocating, it can definitely get passionate. It could strike some chords. Some unconscious biases may come up, and that's okay. So just be aware of that. And then be a problem solver. So keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is the problem, right? Not the person. I always tell people, do not focus on the person, focus on the problem at hand. So an example would be if, and I've had this happen in plenty of organizations I've been a part of. If I'm coaching the CEO, for example, so Emil, you said you do leadership development. So if I'm coaching or mentoring one of the CEOs or CFO or CMO, sometimes when I coach them, what I notice is that they may say things that are inappropriate. Not inappropriate to the point where they should have been fired, but you know what I mean? Like a little deemed like questionable, or maybe it's not resonating with the group, or maybe they're not in touch with the energy, for example, that Alicia said that's in a room, or for their teams. And what I find is it's not good for me to, in the middle of that meeting, to raise my hand and say, hey, we don't like that, right? You got to stop doing that to people. That is not the time for me to do it. It may be more appropriate, though, for me to pull them to a side later, have a closed door conversation with them, come from a place of curiosity, And what I like to call this is you're calling people in versus calling them out, right? No one likes to be called out. I don't care if they tell you, yes, call me out. They don't mean it, right? And in a lot of instances, when I'm calling people in and I'm doing it in private, what I've learned was it's not necessarily that they mean to say or do the things that's happening. They just don't know. Our worlds have constantly changed. Think about pre-COVID versus post-COVID. Think about generational differences. Think about all the change that has happened around us. I can tell you that when you start to speak to most people, what you'll see is that they just don't understand how their words have an impact in that moment. So when you're advocating again, know that it's going to be risky, but if you stay curious, focus on a problem, and call people in versus out, you can be successful at it. Any questions about this one? We're moving right along. Okay, so in order for us to take this one a little bit deeper, I want to show you a video. And this video is actually a good way for you to see how a young lady who I just love her story. She grew up in like this financially wealthy environment. Her family was available. They took care of her. It was a healthy environment for her. And she wanted to become a teacher. And when she became a teacher, she went to more of a poverty area, right? An area that the families were different, the way the children were raised were different. It was different than how she experienced life. But she advocated for them. And I mean, she took some risks. And I mean, I'm sure the risks ranged from her job, the way she showed up. I'm sure a lot of things were risky. But not only that, she stayed curious and she became a problem solver. And because of her work, it actually not just transformed her, but it transformed her students and even how they showed up in life. And I like to tell people that they got to tell their diversity story, so to speak. They got to elevate equity in a way. So I'm gonna play this video really quickly, and then we're gonna talk about any aha moments you have.
So they didn't have the luxury of going home and talking to that hardworking single mom and asking her to pull out her visa, or convincing her to write that check, or even to go to the ATM and get that crisp $20 bill, because if they had that $20 bill, that should go for lights. That should go for food in that fridge. So I told my students, you have to figure out a way. If we're gonna get from point A to point B, if we're gonna take this journey, you have to figure it out. And as we began to fundraise, one of my students put me on the spot like all kids will do, and he said, Ms. G, what happens if we raise all of this money and we don't make it there? And at that moment I thought, well, we're not gonna make it there. So like a deer in the headlights, I said, well, if we raise all of this money and we don't make our way to Washington, D.C., we can buy some more books. Maybe we can take a field trip to the Museum of Tolerance. Maybe we can have a pizza party. So in that case, it's a win-win because we did it together. And then I stopped myself, and to this day, I don't know how and I don't know why. But I said, but if we do make that trip and we do raise that money, your lives will never be the same. And they did. So for a brief moment, I'd like to show you our field trip when 150 kids put down a fist, put down a gun, picked up a pen, and wrote their story and took their words, their story, to our nation's capital.
Somebody came up with this idea that we should honor all of our friends that had been lost to senseless death.
So we wrote names of people we lost in our lives on pins, and we were wearing them as a symbol of that their spirit is still alive. You know, they're still with us, they're still part of us.
We all held hands, and we left the hotel holding hands.
We took a walk to the Washington Memorial, and it was quite a way. And there was 150 of us, and we didn't let go. Everybody started honking at us, and we just kept on walking.
The world just goes by and no one stops to look at somebody in their face, to actually look at them for who they are. And so we stop traffic. And you can feel the presence of this is something bigger than us.
I'll never forget this man rolled down his window and he was very disgruntled and he said, "What are you doing?" And one of the Freedomers said, "We're changing the world." For a group of 150 students, change meant that they didn't have to be like that mother who was strung out or that deadbeat dad, that they could rewrite their own ending.
I love it. I love that story. I love it every single time because it resonates so well with the work that is done around equity. So let me hear your initial thoughts. Where do you see, if anywhere, risk, curiosity, or problem solving? Where do you see it in that video?
Well, I would comment that the whole group together is taking a risk by going out and saying there's change that we want to make and there's something that we want to represent by the being that we show. Just going back to our discussion of being, the being that they're all demonstrating demonstrates a commitment, demonstrates a belief, demonstrates a principle that they're standing for and they're fostering and leading, hopefully, to the change that they all seek. So yes, it's a risk to try to get there, but it's also taking a stand on a principle and a belief that's important and hopefully succeeding based on what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because think about it, the spaces that they come from, right? So they take a risk and they go somewhere they've never been and do things they've never done, but they got to go back home, right? So there's judgment back at home. There's that ask of, did I do the right thing? I'm sure. So absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, it made me think about the concept of internal locus of control versus external locus of control. So a lot of times when people live in environments that are oppressive, or if they're really low income, a lot of times the culture focuses on teaching you that learned helplessness, that you can't do anything, you can't change anything, and so you always focused on what other people want you to do, that external locus of control. And what I really loved was that when the teacher said, the student said, well, what if we don't make it? And then they started to think, well, it's okay if we don't, because we're going to try, because we can try and we can work really hard. And then they actually achieved it. So that whole process taught them that they can achieve something when they put their mind to it. So when she said you'll never be the same again, she was telling the truth. Yeah, because it probably just like completely changed their worldview of who they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it solves a problem, like you said, that it probably resonates and reigns throughout their community in ways that they don't even understand. But I love the curiosity of that student to say, like, okay, I have a question. It's probably not the one that anybody wants to hear, but what if it doesn't work? So that just, it means so much to know that you have people in the room to ask that question, to challenge the norm and really get us all thinking to solve the problem differently. Absolutely. Alicia, you want to add anything before we move to the next one?
No, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure. I want to give you your space.
Well, let me
Okay.
jump in if I can and
Yeah.
just make a comment because what I've heard was something about risk in attempting to make change and feeling a power to do it. And in your first three items that you shared, Mariah, there was making a positive impact on our environment, the power to shape change in the world, and to create inclusivity and equity. When you asked us to consider our ahas for each of those, the one that's in the middle, the power to shape, was the one that I was a little bit uncertain of. It's
Mm.
hard for me, and it may be hard for others to believe that they have that locus of control that we were just talking about, that we have the ability to really make change, to facilitate new things, and to build new directions. So that's a hard one. That's a hard one for me to think about, taking the risk, having the power, and believing that you can really do it. Yes, we want to try, but that's a tough one. There always seems to be barriers and obstacles that make it difficult as we move forward, and we have to work through them. But that's a challenge for me.
Absolutely. And it's a challenge for a lot of people. I can tell you, as the probably biggest risk taker I know in most scenarios, meaning myself, because my mouth gets me in trouble a lot, is, is that even when I do it and I'm doing it afraid, I'm terrified on the inside. So you are not saying anything that I'm sure a lot of us don't feel, but I think what you're saying is that you're wanting to find that space where you can do it afraid, right? You can definitely advocate for others and show up in a different space and make equitable change, but you want to be able to do it in a way that you ease into it. So you kind of are looking at my next slide. So I'm going to ease you into it, Emil. We'll do this one. I'll let you go first to start with this one, because this is a good practice. It's not threatening. It's a safe space, and we can work through it together. So on the screen, you have two common examples that some of the times we usually see in most organizations. What I want you to do is, I'm going to read the first example. What I want you to do, Emil, you're going to kick us off. You tell me, how can we use either risk, curiosity, or problem solving, as we've learned it, to challenge or change the stereotype?
Hmm.
The stereotype reads, a group of individuals assumes that a younger colleague lacks the experience necessary for a leadership role due to their age.
Well, the challenge in that one, there's two sides to it, I think. I think one side is for the individual, the younger colleague, to be able to demonstrate their capability, competence, and to prove to others that they certainly have full capability and full ability to succeed in the leadership role that they're offered. But the other part of it is to look at the group of individuals who makes the stereotypical assumption that only people who have X amount of years have leadership capabilities. We want to encourage them to think more broadly and more fully about potential that people have, insights that people have, the knowledge that people can bring, whatever age, whatever other element of diversity they show. We want to encourage everyone to get beyond those generalizations and stereotypes, and really believe that everyone has an opportunity to succeed.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you a little bit further. What would you do specifically? Let's say, for instance, I'm the person that's in the leadership role, and Alicia and Shani are saying, Mariah is not good for this role because she is too young. And they're saying these things, and you hear them, you're in the room. What is one thing that you can do to potentially advocate for me?
Well, it might be taking a stand to talk about the capabilities and the competence and the successes that the individual has had. Let individuals know that there are capabilities and there are results that someone has been able to achieve, whether it's results in relationships or turning out product or whatever, but talk about successes that the person has, and to encourage the others to see things more equitably, as they consider all, that it isn't just someone who has more experience that could be a leader, that everyone can. So it's a matter of supporting the person in front of the others, but also challenging the others, the group, to go beyond their conceptions, their preconceived notions.
Absolutely. Round of applause for you. Absolutely. Because and you just did it. So when you talk about you struggle with that, I love that, although you're considering the first aha moments, but we've made it to this moment, and you're thinking in your head like, okay, I'm in this space, And yeah, it's going to be risky, but I'm going to come from a place of curiosity and I'm going to solve the problem. And the problem is they have a closed mindset around what leadership looks like. So you're not saying, hey, Mariah can be a leader. You can't talk about her like that, but you're more so coming from a place of, let's think about it more equitably. I heard you use the word, right? That term. You're elevating equity in that space in a way that is non-threatening, in a way that is curious. And that's the work, right? So good job. Kudos to you. All right. Who wants to take the second one?
I'll take it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So it's a microaggression and unconscious bias. So we hear a lot of unconscious bias in our world today. So this is a topic that you're probably going to face if you haven't already. So let's say a colleague repeatedly interrupts a team member from a different background. So what is something that you can do that involves either risk, curiosity, or problem solving based on what we talked about today?
First thing I think about is like maybe being on a conference call or in a meeting and I witness someone doing that. And I would probably mention, first I would probably say, hey, why don't you let, Mariah finish her thought? I would probably do that first. And then if that person did it again, I would then say, hey, Mike, I notice every time Mariah speaks that you cut her off. Is there a reason you wouldn't let her get her full thought out? I would probably just put that person, on the carpet to have them answer it, or make them aware, because I'm creating awareness that he is actually doing that. He may or may not know that he's doing it. So I'm going to at first assume that, until he gives me the answer, and that kind of would let me know if he's doing it on purpose or not, right? And then I would probably, if he was doing it on purpose, I would probably, again, call him on the carpet in a professional way, of course, and just say, it's quite rude that you're interrupting Mariah when she's trying to make a point. I think all of us would like to be able to share our thoughts and be given the floor, just as you would respectfully like that as well. And that's probably how I would.
All right. Absolutely. Round of applause. Give you a round of applause. Yeah. So here's the little thoughts that I'll add to yours, Alicia. Your relationship with Mike. That's a big one. Like, I would really think about, what is your relationship with Mike? Now, I assume in this scenario, you and Mike have a relationship, meaning that you know each other, you maybe have worked together for a while or things like that. And the reason I bring that up is because the relationship piece makes the difference, right? It makes the difference between how Mike would perceive it or not perceive it. The other thing is, I love how you ask the question in a way that says, not necessarily to target Mike, but to make it awareness across the board, like, hey, we all should be doing this. So I think that's the only other thing I would think of, is like, find the way to make it where it becomes a norm. Someone gave me such meeting guidelines. I love meeting guidelines, Alicia. So that's always a good, safe way to do it, to your point, where you're like, you're doing it respectfully, I'm doing it professionally, but it kind of gives Mike an out, to be very honest. You're giving Mike that courtesy of, maybe he doesn't know, but he doesn't know. Now everybody's aligned, right?
I like that, meeting guidelines.
Oh my goodness. I love a good meeting guideline. If you ever need some, let me know. I got 1 million of them. So all right. Good. Okay, we're at the last one. And this last one, I love it because it's easy to do, so easy that we're going to do it right now. I promise you, we're going to do it in just a second. So this is about building a community, okay? And when you're trying to build a community, after you've advocated for others, after you started to do the research and you're curious and you're getting all that information and you're researching and reflecting, you really want to make sure you have this almost safe space to keep going back to. So Emil, for example, you share with us today, like, hey, this is something that I really think I can do and I really want to do, but it's a challenge. Well, you need to find a community that you can keep going to that community and it'll keep challenging you and keep pushing you and keep helping you grow. So I won't share my personal story, but I'll give you the cliff notes. Basically, it was at a time where I wanted to transition my career. And I didn't want to transition from what I was doing, but I wanted to transition the company itself. And I met someone and she was awesome. She was in Atlanta. We connected instantly. And her and I said, you know what? We need to stay in touch with one another. But more importantly, with us being 100% remote, we need to find a way to support each other and stick together. And not only that, see if we can find other people who would want to do the same thing. So we created what we call roundtables. So every quarter, her and I get together with individuals all across the world. We just throw these roundtables together and we talk about any topic in learning and development that we can think of. And it's such an amazing experience because you got people at different companies and you got entrepreneurs and you got all these people getting together to talk about a topic. And the last topic was around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And it's nothing like hearing what are other companies doing that's working, not working, that I could be doing, and I can make myself better. And where this works is it allows you to be able to understand that just by building this little community of people, we were able to expand our knowledge. It gave us the support that we needed. Now, it definitely was creative because we were able to target our network of people and make sure that we were very thoughtful of who showed up in the room. But we created connections that honestly go beyond even our roles. So we're going to practice because practice is the best way to make things work. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to do it in the chat. Everybody participate. I want you to imagine yourself as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging ambassador. You are the ambassador for DEIB right now. And I want you to think, what is one thing you can do that will create a more inclusive or engaging or equitable workplace? So what's one thing that you could do? Drop it in the chat for me. You're the ambassador. You want to bring something to the table, and this is the one thing you think that we can do. Create mentorships to allow all to grow. Great job. I love that. Send offers for participation to a wide variety of people, but as individuals, not a large email list. Oh, yes, that human to human interaction. I love that. Monthly lunches where employees could get to know one another in the company. Amazing. Amazing ideas, right? And guess what? You just built the community. It's just that simple. And I say that because we just dropped in the chat quick ideas. And you may look at one of the ideas, like say, for instance, with this send offers for participations to a wide variety of people as individuals versus a large email list. I would love to know more about that, right? I would love to know, what is a tactical way or a strategic way that I can make that happen that creates that personable space, right? That creates that space of inclusivity. And maybe I reach out to the person that posted and I say, you know what? I want to learn more. Let's talk about it. Let's support each other. Let's get creative with some ideas. Let's build that connection. We can connect with one another in this space or outside this space. We have LinkedIn. We're all a part of ATD, right? We have ways to stay connected. And even 4 people building a community, I can tell you, can change the world because it allows you to be able to, going back to that thought earlier, really truly making people feel like they belong, really truly making people feel like what they contribute makes a difference, right? So that's how you build a community. It's very simple to do, and I challenge you to do it I challenge you to follow up with one another on this call or after this call. I challenge you to reach out to me, right? Make me your connector inside of the Detroit, Michigan area where I can share with you all of my knowledge and things that I have to offer. Okay, that was all the tips. That's all I got. So before we end this, I want to share some resources with you because I am full of resources when it comes to this topic. The first one is How to Be a Diversity and Inclusive Ambassador. And this is an amazing book. It's actually going to give you a lot of creative ways to do something similar to what we just did, right? You'll get different tactics and ways that you can really expand your knowledge, but also help others around you to be more diverse, to be more inclusive when they're doing things. The second one is called Inclusion Magazine. Now, this is an online free magazine that anybody can access. And I love this magazine because they feature so many different diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging ambassadors from all across the world. They tell you what they did, how they did it, why they did it. It is a wealth of information in this space. So I highly recommend that you look at it. Now, the last one, I recently attained another certificate. This one was in Leading Self, Leading Others with Spelman College. And my professor had us read this book, Diversity in the Workplace. And I can tell you, as an African-American woman, I'm always thinking, how can I expand my knowledge of diversity so that my lens is not just on my work and what I do and what I've experienced? And this book helped me to do this. I got to learn about stories and interviews of people who had different challenges than I had in a diverse space. So I highly recommend that you pick up that book and you look at it and you really get to use it in a way that makes sense for you. Now, I have a million other resources, so you feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and I can share them with you. We're at the end, but before we end, and I think this is going to be helpful for everyone, I want to play another quick video. And this video is really going to show you in practice, in a workplace environment, how we can elevate equity. So it's really quick. We'll play it and we'll look at it.
You know that little voice in your head? The one that tells you to ignore a tasteless joke.
The one that tells you to keep quiet when a client makes a racist comment.
The little voice that tells you you're not smart enough because English isn't your first language.
Or that it's okay to judge someone for leaving early because they have family commitments.
The one that tells you not to say anything when others are being reduced to stereotypes.
Or that it's not a big deal when everyone's opinion isn't considered.
You may think you're the only one that hears that voice, but that voice also speaks to other people. It says,
You're different.
You're an outsider.
You lack commitment.
Your opinion doesn't matter.
Instead of listening to that little voice, you need to find yours and make it heard. It's time for all of us to speak up. Because when we change the dialogue, we can change our world.
Another video that I just love to see, right? Because transparently, and I would be remiss to even make you think that this work was easy. It's not. It is not easy work at all. Elevating equity is not an easy task, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it in the end to see not just how you change as a person, but how people around you begin to change, how your communities look different, how you even help the next generation. I can tell you, my niece, my future child, my everybody is going to be different because I'm not the same person as my mother, my grandmother, or even her mother. And that's what this work is about. It's about finding that unity and that way together where we can work together to do something different. I hope that you've enjoyed this experience overall. Before we leave, I do want to get your greatest, your biggest takeaway. We've gone over what these 3 keys look like: increasing your awareness by finding new information and reflecting on it, and then advocating for others, where you get to embrace your voice and really use it, and then building a community, which definitely is going to look like support across your journey. So tell me, which of these 3 or any other moments from this conversation, just drop it in the chat. Which one is the biggest aha moment for you? Anything that you're taking away, you're like, I'm ready. I'm going to elevate equity. I'm going to get out there and be a cultural change catalyst. What's the thing you're taking away? Building a community, amazing. I think advocacy is most important to me. Absolutely. Right. And that's where it starts. Finding what you need or what you want for you, and then adding to it as you go. Because it's not a race. No one wins a trophy at the end. We all win at the end of this one because we get to work together. And I hope that these 3 keys truly help you to work to create and become the cultural catalyst that you already are, and that you get to elevate equity. And it doesn't have to look impossible, because it wasn't impossible for me and it's not impossible for you. But just know that it's a goal and it can truly, truly happen. So I leave you with this. This is my way of giving away something to you, but also getting something from you, which is feedback, which is always a gift. So if you take your phone, you can take that QR code, click that button, and you can fill out the form. It's a really quick form. I ask that you all fill it out for me. And just give me your feedback, anything that you have that you want to share. And I have a gift for you. So a part of the next journey of my work is going to be a new program that I'm calling Revamp. And this program is going to launch this summer. And by filling out this form, you will be one of the first individuals to receive that information. And what it looks like is it's really helping to elevate equity within businesses and communities in a tactical way. So you're going to get processes, you're going to get some feedback options, some things that you can use, and you can really, really, really start to maximize how to elevate equity. So that's my gift to you. If you don't have anything else for me, any other questions or anything like that, I will pass it back over to the hostess.
Thank you so much, Mariah. This was so informative and entertaining and touching. And I do have to say, there were a couple of times where I had to, sort of freeze my face to keep from crying because it was really very moving. And just really, I'm just so glad that we met and that you gave this presentation for us. I really can't thank you enough.
Yeah, no problem. I love the work. I love what you all are doing. I am a huge fan of Mid New Jersey chapter. I can't wait to get there in person one day, but I am very, very proud of the work you all are doing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much, Emil and Alicia, for attending. And we'll hope to see you at the next event. We do have an in-person event next week. And we have lots of webinars scheduled for the rest of the year. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great
Thanks so
evening.
much.
Thank
Enjoyed it,
you.
folks. Nice working with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.